Hey everybody, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. Sorry I haven't been posting quite as much lately. I've been really busy with stuff. Um, Hope you all have been doing well. Let's see, today is Tuesday, and I believe it is June 1st. So, new month, fresh new start. I think the energies have been a little crazy the past week or so, especially when the moon was going into a full moon. It was in Sagittarius, of course, and then Scorpio, and then it went into Sagittarius, and I think that Sagittarius phase of the moon, it was pretty intense. Anyway, getting into the theme of the video today, something I've wanted to do for a long time now, actually. We're going to start analyzing the Holy Bible, specifically the King James Version. I know there's older original Hebrew translations that are probably much better. There's other versions of the Bible, but King James kind of seems the go-to. And of course, we all know that the stories of the Bible are different. It's a synthesis of different stories written from different authors and even different time periods, kind of all rolled into one story. And there's a historical event. I believe Constantine was the emperor at the time, I want to say, and the Council of Nicaea was formed, and this is where Christianity was split into all different sects or groups, and they couldn't come to an agreement on a lot of things. So Constantine basically they formed a council, they threw away the parts of the Bible they didn't want to keep, and they formed one Bible, which ended up being, from what I understand, the King James Version of the Bible, because he wanted to unify the nation at the time. But a lot of important information got thrown out at that time too, because they were doing what was in the political interests or the religious interests of the time. It wasn't really about truth, it was about just unifying the people. Getting into this a little more, before we get into this a little more, we're just going to start from Genesis. I'm pretty much going to read through it. We're going to analyze each little bit because there's just so much to talk about in the Bible. The Bible has, gosh, you could study the Bible just itself for a lifetime, I feel like. There's biblical scholars out there that know way more than I do about it. I just want to give my various perspectives where I've learned things from other areas, such as extraterrestrial beings, different mystery schools, just in life experience, and incorporate all that into the Bible. This is actually my Masonic Bible. You see the square and compasses there on the side. You've probably seen it on my shelf in the background in a lot of these videos. It's got nice golden pages. This was my Bible that I actually was initiated with. Entered apprentice, fellowcraft, and master mason degree, because you have a Bible that is yours when you go on your Masonic journey, and this is the one that I used when I joined. And there's a lot of cool sections I have in here. They leave a spot for, here's a couple things from Scottish Rite, and then all the members of, it's got like when I was initiated, passed and raised, and all that stuff. It's got like a family tree in here. There's even an index that describes a little bit about all the degrees and stuff in Masonry, and definitions of biblical terms, like before you even get into the book. And then there's a whole dictionary and index thing in the back too. So it's just a super cool Bible. It would take quite a while to read through all of this. Looks like when I was reading through the Old Testament, because I have read the whole New Testament before, looks like I got about to, where am I at? I'm in Samuel 2. So I never quite finished the Old Testament. But anyway, we're going to head back to Genesis here, the first chapter. And I was just looking up the definition of Genesis, because I really like to look up the definition of words while I'm studying. And it means the origin or mode of formation of something. So just a little input there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get into it here, I think. Open up another window, because there's other definitions I want to go over as well. Okay. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So here, in the beginning, God. Which God are we talking about? Is this the unity consciousness of all creation that they're talking about here? Well, I don't have an answer for you. when I pray to God, that's what I pray to, is the original source consciousness that is above and beyond, what we can really even perceive, but which is ultimately just our higher selves. And we are here being reflected as an experience or a spark of the divine manifested here in the physical realm. But anyway, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Jordan Maxwell is he's got some really interesting information. He's got lots of YouTube videos, but you can even look up his video on Genesis. He does a whole lecture on Genesis, the beginning of Genesis, because Genesis kind of goes on for a little while. There's a bit of stuff in here. And he says that the original, I think, Aramaic or such, because we have Hebrew translations, but whatever the original translations of what we now know as the Bible was, the way it was written is the word for God is Elohim. And Elohim is not only, it's a plural word. It doesn't mean singular, like the way we think of it in Christianity. We think one God or whatever, but Elohim was feminine and it was plural. So that's strange. So the gods, feminine, it's kind of weird. I'm not going to get into that. But what I will say is that from what I understand, a lot of the times in the Bible, they're talking about this thing called Jehovah, which is otherwise known as the demiurges, because you had original source consciousness, which created a divine mother and a divine father spirit, and then from these two, and it's actually the third sephirah on the triad too, I believe it's Bina, is associated with Jehovah. I read in a Manly P. Hall lecture, or the demiurges. So the two parents born from the unity consciousness, or which would be like Kether, essentially, I guess, they gave birth to this demiurges, or this other inferior god, which is sometimes considered Jehovah or maybe Yahweh sometimes. We'll get into more theories later on, but as you can see, there's already so much from the beginning. We don't know exactly what they say when they're saying, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Now, where atheists get it wrong is they say, oh, there's no God. Like, you can't prove it, and God is something that you don't just intellectually understand. It's something that, and it's beyond what you've ever been explained God to be. Like, in church, they never really did a good enough job of explaining what it was. They're like, just believe and love Jesus, and that's not, you're not really explaining anything to me. It's like, it's good that you want to practice real righteous love if that's really what you're doing. A lot of the times people say things, but they mean something completely different, or it's just not the original concept of what it means. But moving forward, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So already you have this sense of duality. You've got heaven, I would assume, above. You've got heaven and earth. That's all they've said. You have heaven and earth. Good or evil. Kether, Malkut, maybe? Because on the tree of life, this would be unity source consciousness. In the material realm, the earth, or Malkut, is all the way down here. And the earth was without form and void. So the earth didn't have form. So what was it if it didn't have form? And it was void. So, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. What's really being said there? I'm not sure. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So, like, this image I get in my mind all the time is just like, there's this, like, water. And it's pretty much, there's got to be some kind of water, or, and we're going to get into this in a second. The definition of firmament. And maybe that will clarify some things for us. But the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water. So I imagine like this big white glowing thing is kind of what I've always pictured in my mind. And then it just says, not literally physically like speaking, but let there be light, and there was light. Because they say that the world was created from the logos, or the word of God. Like, he spoke reality into existence. And when we look at like corporate logos, that's why they're called logos. And I think that's like a profane way or I guess it doesn't have to be profane. It's often used in a profane way, but logos would be a microcosmic like conception. It's our own creation. It's our logos. We're putting that into existence. Like if we were viewing ourselves as microcosmic deities, I tend to not want to get caught up on all these lower layer or lower level stuff. I just want to move on to that divine source. We're moving upwards. So as we read already, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. So, if he's saying, let there be light, and there was light, did everything just manifest into light? And then he saw that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. So was it light, and then he separated it away from darkness? Or was there light and darkness, and he just took the light away from the darkness? What is really being said there? I wonder if this also has some reference to Lucifer or something. I never even really thought about that before until just now. And God said, let there be light, and there was light, and God saw the light that it was good. They say Lucifer was the most beautiful of all angels. He was, the ultimate servant of God before the fall. They talk about symbolically, and we'll get into all that stuff. That's like a huge, not always straightforward conversation or topic. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So he separated the day and the night now. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And the evening and the morning were the first day. Why is it not the morning, the afternoon, and then the evening? There's got to be some deeper symbolic significance to these opening quotes that I don't even really know myself. But there's a lot of talk about light and dark here. So we're not just talking about physical light or darkness, obviously. We're talking about deeper esoteric things, primal forces of nature. This is the beginning of creation, so to speak, in this first chapter of Genesis. Okay, here we go. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament. So I'm imagining this line or something. There's waters under here. God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. So I don't know if he's talking about the globe. If we're looking at the earth, is that the equator? Like he's looking at the waters above and below and he's dividing it? There's more ancient versions or maps of earth which are more like flat earth. It's not really just plain flat earth. It's like a concave. I'm trying to think of what the name of that archaic map of earth is called. There's another name for it. And I cannot think of what it's called right now. I think even Jehovah's Witnesses, they kind of view the earth more from that. It's some kind of almost like a crater, like Dante's Inferno. The hell's like at the bottom, like all the way. It's like kind of in the center of earth, like where Lucifer crashed down into the earth. So it's like in the center of the earth, and then you raise up from there and you go into purgatory, which is actually the southern hemisphere. So you're down here at the bottom of the earth. It's really strange, the way that. I wonder if I can figure that out real quick. Because it's bothering me that I can't think of the name of the map. No, I'm not really. It's something along the lines of firmament. The firmament of God, the flat earth. I wanted to say there was one other word that I was thinking of, but I can't think of what it is. That's all right. Okay. But, okay, let's go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and, I guess, move the phone over here yonder. Like so. Okay. Let's go ahead and read the definition of heaven. By the way, this website, it's sacredtexts.com. Like any spiritual stuff you could possibly, that's what the homepage kind of has, this logo. It's a great website. It has all kinds of information on there. Let's see. So heaven is used to indicate the whole universe. Or, I'm sorry, the phrase heaven and earth is used to indicate the whole universe. According to the Jewish notion, there were 3 heavens. The firmament, as fowls of the heaven, the eagles of heaven, the starry heavens, the heaven of heavens, or the third heaven. The Hebrew word merom is also used as equivalent to shemayim, high places, heights. Literally, a wheel is rendered heaven in Psalm 77:18. There's a lot of like side notes and stuff here that are kind of hard to read. The metaphorical meaning of the term. Yeah, they're just giving me a bunch of quotes from the Bible. They're not really the heavenly Jerusalem, paradise, eternal kingdom. Life everlasting, eternal rest, eternal... Anyway, that's not really helping me too much on that. What do they say about darkness? Anything interesting? No, they're not really getting into what we want to get into there. Let me look up the firmament. So, it's used as a translation of the Hebrew or something or other. The word firmament, this word simply means expansion. It denotes the space or expanse like an arch appearing immediately above us. Maybe there could be some connection with the royal arch with this. They who rendered Raki, R-A-K-I, by firmamentum, regarded it as a solid body. The language of Scripture is not scientific but popular, and hence we read of the sun rising and setting. It is plain that this word was used to denote solidity as well as expansion. It formed a division between the waters above and the waters below. So the upper reservoir, it was the support also of the heavenly bodies, spoken as having windows and doors through which the rain and snow might descend. That's weird. Genesis 7:11. Anyway, those are just some like definitions. Those don't seem to really help though. They're more just... Oops, I accidentally closed the wrong window there. There we go. Okay, let's go back over here. Sorry that I am so slow in getting into this. I just want to move, since I'm starting to cover the Bible, I just want to go through really slowly and cover almost every single thing I can think of, because I feel like we're all together trying to figure out the mystery of the Bible, and what it means for real. What's funny is Aleister Crowley, even though his mother called him the Beast, and he considered himself the Beast 666, even from an early childhood, he was kind of forced to be religious at first, and he learned a lot about the Bible, but he, unlike most people who just read the Bible and like just blindly believe whatever and go to church and don't really study any further, he knew the Bible. Like, even though he was kind of a messed up dude, that Aleister Crowley knew way more about the Holy Bible than most Christians will ever know, or priests or pastors that I've ever met. They just don't seem to really know like the deeper lore and the answer to a lot of questions. So I always thought that was interesting. Moving on. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which... And divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. So he separated these waters, and God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. Okay, here again, the evening and the morning were the second day. What about, why is it not mentioning morning, afternoon, and evening, and night's not really being mentioned here either? And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. and it was so. So the waters here being gathered into one place. So I'm just like imagining all this water being sucked over here, and then and let the dry land just appear, and it was so. A lot of like scientists will say that each day of God, like if they're scientists who are also Christians, they're going to try to say that each day of the creation story is like, you know, like 100,000 years or a couple million years or whatever. And I mean, it's safe to say, because one day for the creator of all things, you know, or God, or whichever God they're talking about, you know, in this particular text, sometimes it's hard to know. You know, one day would go by really quick probably for a God, and then for us, we're in a lower physical space, so we're experiencing time and space in a much different way. It's much physical reality to me, especially if I'm not around like high vibratory people, or if I'm not feeling right or something, or I'm not in the right atmosphere. Reality starts to feel really heavy for me. Like, and when I connect with these higher ideals, these higher ideas, I really connect with Source, and I feel more alive, and I'm looking for more people to share and talk about these things with, because like I've said in videos before, this is truly the lifeblood. So from the perspective of the deity, you know, this channel is called Occult Perspectives. It could be that one day, you know, might be thousands and thousands of years or whatever. And about the name Occult Perspectives, I think I totally stole that name, by the way. If I can find the book up here, unless I moved it. Yeah, I think I subconsciously stole the name Occult Perspectives from this book, because this myth, magic, and masonry that I've introduced in videos before, it's literally called Occult Perspectives in Freemasonry at the bottom. So I guess, sorry, Jamie Lamb, if I'm pronouncing that right. James Lamb, or Jime. I would assume Jamie, could be wrong. But I kind of stole the Occult Perspectives part of the name from my YouTube channel. So just so you guys know where the inspiration came from, even though I didn't realize it came from there. Probably I just read it and then thought about it later on. So now we're at the part where, and God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. So the gathering together of the waters, that's an interesting use of words, called he seas. So you get the earth and seas now. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. That's kind of interesting. I mean, we all know that seeds grow into trees or plants or whatever, and we also talk about star seeds and the whole idea of planting seeds so that people can grow on to ideas later on. They'll understand things more. But it's interesting to hear it worded like that. Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. So is creation, like, or source, it's within itself as it moves through all these life forms? Is it just source, like consciousness, the entire time? It's the one consciousness? I think those are interesting wordings. I never really read it this slow and like really tried to absorb everything that's being said. I think we're just going to cover, we're already 24 minutes into the video, so I'm just going to cover chapter 1 in Genesis. We're just going to go over that first chapter and really extensively hit on this topic. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind, and God saw that it was good. So there we go again. You know, it's kind of the same thing being said there. And why are we not utilizing, if God's saying, we know that poison exists in nature, like some plants you don't want to eat, but there's so much that nature provides that we're not utilizing really as people. It's like we're trying to create this, why are we trying to create this fake thing? And the only thing that makes sense to me is control over people's bodies alchemically. If you're putting junk in their body and they're not eating natural things, or consuming, like natural plants, and we're not living from the earth. We're trying to create this archonic I always like to use the Archon reference, or Matrix society, and it's just not working out. It's like, if you want to become a robot, I guess that's how you become a robot, but I'm not really interested in that whole spiel. So let's, just take from the earth what the mother provides. And the evening and the morning were the third day. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. Okay, so that's a little confusing too. If we go back, and God called the firmament heaven. So this arch or whatever is, as they said on sacred texts on my computer, is like this arch or something. So this arch ends up being heaven. God said, let there be lights in the firmament, the arch of the heaven, to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years, to basically divide time or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Father Kronos, whatever. A lot of people say the God of the Old Testament is Kronos, or Father Time, too, because it's like all about violence and tradition and following the rules, whereas the New Testament of the Bible would be the Jesus. It's the loving God, it's the pure Christ unconditional love God, which is kind of different from the Mars almost energy, or the Saturn energy of the Old Testament God. Just studying archetypes further there. That's just interesting. Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven. So if it's an arch or whatever that they're talking about, and we were talking about how the heaven was formed earlier in the video, back on going to chapter 1, verse 7, and God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so, and God called the firmament heaven. So there's waters above the firmament of heaven? It kind of goes in line with something I just experienced during meditation. It was all these souls being raised up into what seemed like this cloud, but there was no cloud. It was just pure white light above. And if the firmament is heaven, if it's the arch, then what is above that? Is it these 3 layers? Because above Kether on the Tree of Life, you have 3 layers. There's the infinite light, which is the Ein Sof Or. There's the limitless all, which is the limitless all, A-L-L, which is Ein Sof. Then there's the void, which is just Ein, and then beyond that it says the horizon of eternity. So really, it gets so confusing and so transcendent. It's like, what are we really talking about here? Okay, don't want to be rambling too much. Want to at least get through this first chapter. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and it was so. So there's lights in the firmament, this arch in the sky, or whatever, to give light upon the earth, and it was so. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. 2 great lights, and the lesser light to rule the night. That's interesting, because you've got 2 great lights and a lesser light. But what is this? Is this the sun and the moon? He said 2 great lights. But then he says the greater light is to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. So the lesser light, is it not great, or is it still one of the great lights that he's talking about there in the beginning? And this whole theme for Masons too, about the greater and the lesser lights of Masonry. Not going to go into that right now because that's too much stuff, but just think about that, when you're reading Genesis. I'm guessing they're just talking about, this is Genesis chapter 1, verse 16. I think they're talking about the sun, moon, and the stars here. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven, the arch of the heaven again, to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. So what it seems like here is there's all this creation going on above, like, here's all this other manifested stuff. Like, these are other gods and goddesses, blah, 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 other archetypes, energy forces, or whatever, ultimate supreme sources up here. What they seem to be talking about almost is just the creation of, like, this physical, like, it almost sounds like, I just imagine like this physical globe being built, and it's not really all of creation, it's just confined to this one thing. Maybe it's this, not the supreme divine architect of all things, but just some architect of mere physical existence, maybe, that they're talking about in Genesis 2. Spirit Science, I also wanted to talk about real quick, does a really cool video about like the days of creation in Genesis, and it shows like the flower of life. Like it starts out with the dot in the center, and then there's one flower of life, or maybe it's the seed of life, it's one of the two, but the days of creation are like the different pieces of the flower of life. So that's a really cool connection as well. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day, and God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. Pretty much think that fowl just means birds, if I remember right. And it says, interesting, he says, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, because water is the life force of all things. And even if you believe in evolution and stuff, like most of the biological creation started in the water, and then the beings moved to land, and so forward and so on. So even the order that the creation story is given in Genesis kind of follows the whole evolutionary line of things too. And like evolution doesn't, I'm not thinking just evolution from a Darwinian perspective, but the whole evolution of the soul. So I don't think evolution and like spirituality really have to be separated. And in ancient times, religion and science were never really separated. It was all studied as one thing. It's, it's studying what is, life. We're trying to figure all this out. So we need to use all the information available that we can. Okay, here we go. I just read that. And God created great whales. Maybe not so much, because now he's creating whales already, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. So he goes from creating abundantly the moving creature that hath life, waters bring forth this abundantly, and the fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And then it just goes on in 21 to say, and God created great whales. So is that because like the blue whale is the biggest animal on the planet? Like maybe that's why it went straight to whales. Okay, it's definitely not following the evolutionary scheme here. I guess I was wrong on that. It's been a while since I've read like just the first chapter of Genesis. Moving forward. Which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. Notice they're saying multiply here, and they're not saying replenish. I'm pretty sure with Adam and Eve later on in the story, though, it says go forth and replenish the earth. But we're going to get to that, and we're going to have to get to that in the next video, because this video is already super long. One more thing I want to talk about too, which we'll get more into in the next video, is the whole Sumerian epic is supposed to be an older version of the Genesis of the Bible, or the Christian Bible, or whatever. The whole Christian Bible, a lot of the sacred texts, similar to the creation stories and the whole Garden of Eden thing, is based off of these ancient Sumerian stories, which really include, the main two characters are Enki and Enlil, and this would be the god of the physical world, or Enki's, like the physical, the Anunnaki god, and then Enlil is his brother, which is often considered Lucifer in the stories. We'll get into that later. This is one of the Anunnaki books, the Lost Books of Enki, Zechariah Sitchin. Really good stuff. I'm not totally sold on all the Sumerian stuff, but Sumer is like the oldest culture we really know much about. All the other cultures are considered more ancient and stuff, and we just like Atlantis and Lemuria and all that stuff, we just don't have as much information on that stuff. Moving onward. I kind of lost my spot. I don't know if I read 23 yet. In the evening and the morning were the fifth day, and God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creepy thing and beast of the earth after his kind, and it was so. He said, let the earth bring forth. So the earth manifests this. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and the cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. So everything's good so far, just so you know. And God said, let us make man in our image. Not my image, in our image? Let's make God in our image? So this goes back to the whole, the Elohim, the plural feminine. So let us make man in our image. And if you study the Gospel of Judas, which I just have started to study that, they talk about an angel race which really created like the humans, and they created the humans in their image. But that's getting off into more topics again. We'll talk about that stuff later. And God said, let us make man in our image, not my image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Let them have dominion. Did this mean like dominate everything? Does this mean like kill everything like we've done to our planet, like we've just desecrated? I don't think so. It just means that we have superior intellectual faculties, and even animals and plants all have consciousness. You know, I think a lot of the animals and stuff, they're way smarter than we are because they're still tapped into nature. They're not caught up in a lot of the dumb stuff that we've created ourselves that have put so much hurt on us as a human race. Like, we are really stabbing ourselves, you know, in a way. Just, it's crazy. Anyway, moving on. Okay. So God created man in his own image. Now it's using this singular, but it's like from a different perspective almost. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. In a Manly P. Hall's chapter on the Sephirotic tree, it talks about this prototype Adam, which was originally he's known as the Greek Didymos. He's the prototype of all humanity. He's masculine and feminine merged into like this bisexual, like primordial man that came before man and woman were ever like separated into two separate ones. This is interesting. There's also the story of that Adam had another wife before Eve, and this was Lilith. So there's a lot in other texts, like such as the Dead Sea Scrolls, that's not really being described here. And Adam and Eve even have other books like about them, like that's from the Dead Sea Scrolls. So there's so much information that's missing, especially from this first story, like Genesis. It just like skips all this stuff, and it's like skimming over so much information. So that's why I'm trying to cover a lot of this. We're almost done here, though. We're almost through, I promise. And God blessed them, the male and the female, after he created them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth. Don't fill the earth, replenish it. What do they mean by this? Like, replenish. And Jordan Maxwell, he's the one that really makes this point. Like, you're filling it up again. Just think about that as we move forward. Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it. Subdue it? What? If you're subduing something, it's like you're whittling away, or you're, they often say, subdue the passions and stuff. Minimalize? Not sure what they mean. And have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. So he's saying here that he's giving mankind herb and meat, it sounds like. I'll go on and just go ahead and read the rest of chapter 1. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. So he's giving herb for meat, as in Adam and Eve don't have to kill animals and eat them. Like, they can just live off of the fruits and the vegetables of the tree. I guess it would be the tree of life. They can eat from the tree of life, and they can live in the Garden of Eden. So I'm guessing they're constantly nourished. They don't really have to worry about hunting and all that stuff before the fall. I'm assuming. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. So there's the 6 days of creation we've got there so far. That's chapter 1 of Genesis. Hopefully you got something out of this video. Maybe you learned something new. I know most of us have read, Genesis before, especially if we're in the spiritual, esoteric, or occult community. But I just want to know what you guys think. Put your inputs in if you have anything to say. You want to add any knowledge, light. Always love to hear what you have to say. I'm going to go ahead and end this video. I hope you all take care. Stay blessed. Know that everything's going to be all right. As long as we just stay with Source. God is in our hearts. God is always with us. Because we are connected to the Source. We are the Source having the experience, the journey here in this now. I love you all very much. We've almost reached 60 subscribers. I'm really excited. So keep the subscriptions coming. Make sure you ring the little bell if you want notifications for new videos. Until next time, peace and love.